A growing number of people believe that aliens have visited Earth. Some believe they have been here a very long time. Some believe they are here now, watching over the human race. And some believe they know the agendas of the aliens, why they are here, and what they want. Many can tell you specifically which aliens come to Earth and what their cultures are like. The alien abduction and contactee movement began in the 1950s with various people who claimed they had seen aliens, been taken for rides on their spacecraft, and even had telepathic contact with numerous races. This was known as the contactee movement, and it continues to this day.
I was aboard a flying saucer in the Nevada desert on 11 different occasions. I was taken into this monstrous saucer by one of the men and confronted with a lady captain. Beautiful complexion, beautiful appearing woman, and they're peaceful people. They mean no harm to us. They come down here to investigate what's going on Earth, and they certainly convinced me that they're peaceful, and they come from another planet they call Clarion. They told me there was life on Mars and that there were life on other planets as well, and all planets except Earth had interplanetary means of travel.
I have made telepathic contact for the past 8 years with many space people from many areas of space, both inside and outside of the solar system.
They told me that language is no barrier to them anywhere. They could speak any language.
I seem to become one with the entire universe. Everything in the universe seemed to be contracted down to one small dot.
However, the first reported abduction that didn't follow the contactee scenario occurred in September of 1961. The Betty and Barney Hill case would prove to be the most disturbing case of alien abduction that continues to enthrall UFO believers. To this day, it cannot be explained. The incident came to be called the Hill abduction and the Zeta Reticuli incident because the couple stated that they had been kidnapped by aliens who claimed to be from the Zeta Reticuli system. Their story was adapted into the best-selling 1966 book, The Interrupted Journey, and the 1975 television movie, The UFO Incident. In September of 2016, plans were announced to make a film based on the events with an unknown release date. Most of Betty Hill's notes, tapes, and other items have been placed in the permanent collection at the University of New Hampshire, her alma mater. In July 2011, the State Division of Historical Resources marked the site of the alleged craft's first approach with a historical marker. According to a variety of reports given by the Hills, the alleged UFO sighting happened on September the 19th of 1961, around 10:30 p.m. The Hills were driving back to Portsmouth from a vacation in Niagara Falls in Montreal. Just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, Betty claimed to have observed a bright point of light in the sky that moved from below the moon and the planet Jupiter upward to the west of the moon. While Barney navigated U.S. Route 3, Betty reasoned that she was observing a falling star, only it moved upward. Since it moved erratically and grew bigger and brighter, Betty urged Barney to stop the car for a closer look, as well as to walk their dog, Delcy. Barney stopped at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Betty looked through binoculars, observed an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights travel across the face of the moon. Because her sister had several years earlier said she saw a flying saucer, Betty thought it might be what she was observing. Through binoculars, Barney observed what he reasoned was a commercial airliner traveling toward Vermont on its way to Montreal. However, he soon changed his mind, because without looking as if it had turned, the craft rapidly descended in his direction. This observation caused Barney to realize this object that was a plane was not a plane. He quickly turned to the car and drove toward Franconia Notch, a narrow mountainous stretch of the road. The Hills claimed that they continued driving on the isolated road, moving very slowly from Franconia Notch in order to observe the object as it came even closer. At one point, the object passed above a restaurant and a signal tower on top of Cannon Mountain and came out near the old man of the mountain. Betty testified that it was at least 1.5 times the length of the granite cliff profile, which was 40 feet long, and that it seemed to be rotating. The couple watched as the silent, illuminated craft moved erratically and bounced back and forth in the night sky. Approximately 1 mile south of Indian Head, the object rapidly descended towards their vehicle, causing Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. The huge, silent craft hovered approximately 80 to 100 feet above the Hills' car and filled the entire field of view in the windshield. It reminded Barney of a huge pancake. Carrying his pistol in his pocket, he stepped away from the vehicle and moved closer to the object. Using the binoculars, Barney claimed to have seen about 8 to 11 humanoid figures who were peering out of the craft's windows, seeming to look at him. In unison, all but one figure moved to what appeared to be a panel on the rear wall of the hallway that encircled the front portion of the craft. The one remaining figure continued to look at Barney and communicated a message telling him to stay where you are and keep looking. Barney had a recollection of observing the humanoid forms wearing glossy black uniforms and black caps. Red lights on what appeared to be bat-wing fins began to telescope out of the sides of the craft, and a long structure descended from the bottom of the craft. The silent craft approached to what Barney estimated was within 50 to 80 feet overhead and 300 feet away from him. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and ran back to his car. In a near hysterical state, he told Betty, "They're going to capture us." He saw the object again lift its location to directly above the vehicle. He drove away at high speed, telling Betty to look for the object. She rolled down the window and looked up. Almost immediately, the Hills heard a rhythmic series of beeping or buzzing sounds, which they said seemed to bounce off the trunk of their vehicle. The Hills said that at this point in time they experienced the onset of an altered state of consciousness that left their minds dulled. A second series of beeping or buzzing sounds returned the couple to full consciousness. They found that they had traveled nearly 35 miles south, but had only vague, spotty memories of this section of road. They recalled making a sudden, unplanned turn, encountering a roadblock, and observing a fiery orb in the road. Arriving home at about dawn, the Hills assert that they had some odd sensations and impulses that they could not readily explain. Betty insisted their luggage be kept near the back door rather than in the main part of the house. Their watches would never run again. Barney said that the leather strap for the binoculars was torn, though he could not recall it tearing. The toes of his best dress shoes were scraped. Barney says he was compelled to examine his genitalia in the bathroom, though he found nothing unusual. They took long showers to remove possible contamination, and each drew a picture of what they had observed. Perplexed, the Hills said they tried to reconstruct the chronology of events as they witnessed the UFO and drove home. But immediately after they heard the buzzing sounds, their memories became incomplete and fragmented. After sleeping for a few hours, Betty awoke and placed the shoes and clothing she had worn during the drive into her closet, observing that the dress was torn at the hem, zipper, and lining. Later, when she retrieved the items from her closet, she noted a pinkish powder on her dress. She hung the dress on her clothesline, and the pink powder blew away, but the dress was irreparably damaged. She threw it away, but then changed her mind, retrieving the dress and hanging it in her closet. Over the years, 5 laboratories have conducted chemical and forensic analysis on this dress. There were shiny concentric circles on the car's trunk that had not been there the previous day. Betty and Barney experimented with a compass, noting that when they moved it close to the spots, the needle would whirl rapidly. But when they moved it a few inches away from the shiny spots, it would drop down. After their ordeal, they were referred to Benjamin Simon of Boston, who would hypnotize them both. The full story of their abduction was revealed through those sessions, and this case has become the premier UFO abduction case of all time. This would be the first reported abduction that involved medical examinations, where skin samples were taken. Betty had a pregnancy test that didn't exist at that time in our medical science. One of the most bizarre experiences Betty had involved a star map she saw while on the craft. The aliens let her examine the map and asked her if she could locate Earth on the map, which she couldn't. But later, under hypnosis, she was able to draw the map in detail. At that time, Earth science had never charted the stars in the map. But by 1969, a new astronomy book was released that included the stars in Betty's map. Marjorie Fish, an Ohio schoolteacher, took on the task of trying to locate the stars in Betty's map, assuming that one of the 15 stars on the map must represent the Earth's sun. Fish constructed a 3-dimensional model of nearby sun-like stars using threads and beads, basing stellar distances on those published in the 1969 Gliese Star Catalog. Studying thousands of vantage points over several years, the only one that matched the Hill map was from the viewpoint of the double star system of Zeta Reticuli. The Betty and Barney Hill case has been debated for decades with no absolute conclusions. Some say they imagined the incident, while others point out the astronomical chance that Betty could describe a star cluster that turned out to be accurate. There's also the chemical analysis of her dress, which was inconclusive. To this day, the Betty and Barney Hill incident stands as the first recorded encounter with what may have been a race of aliens called the Greys. Though the Greys do appear in earlier accounts, the Hill case is the most prominent. The Greys, possibly the most well-known of all the various aliens known to man, may have been around for a very long time. Often described as emotionless and servants to other races of aliens, gray aliens are extraterrestrial beings whose existence is discussed in ufological, paranormal, and New Age communities, and who are named for their unique skin color. 43% of all reported alien encounters in the United States describe gray aliens. Such claims vary in every respect, including their nature, origins, such as extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers, or machines, their moral dispositions, intentions, and physical appearances. A composite description derived from overlap in claims would have grays as small-bodied beings with smooth gray-colored skin, enlarged hairless heads, and large black eyes. The popularization of the idea of the Greys is commonly associated with the Barney and Betty Hill abduction, which took place in 1961. Although skeptics see precursors in science fiction and earlier paranormal claims. The gray aliens are also famed from earlier depictions of the Roswell UFO incident from 1947. Some sources in the UFO community describe the role of the gray alien race as an artificially created being used by other races as servants or even slaves used to execute tasks such as abductions. Greys are typically depicted as dark gray-skinned diminutive humanoid beings that possess reduced forms of or completely lacking external human organs such as noses, ears, or sex organs. Their bodies are usually depicted as being elongated, having a small chest and lacking in muscular definition and visible skeletal structure. Their legs are shorter and jointed differently from what we would expect in a human. Their limbs are often depicted as proportionally different from a human's. Their humerus and thighs are the same lengths as their forearms and shins. Greys are depicted as having unusually large heads in proportion to their bodies. They have no hair anywhere on their body, including the face, and no noticeable outer ears or noses, but only small openings or orifices for ears and nostrils. They have very small mouths and very large opaque black eyes with no discernible iris or pupil. Reports of alleged encounters state their height to be 2 to 4 feet tall, but many may be human size or taller, as other varieties of greys have been described in various claims. It is said that their home planet is in the Zeta Reticuli star system, allegedly the fourth planet of one of the stars of the Zeta Reticuli binary system. The Greys therefore became mistakenly known as Zeta Reticulans. However, the description of Zetans, a similarly named alien race, differs completely from that of the Greys. They differ in appearance, behavior, flying craft design, and in how they treat abductees. The Greys appear as the benevolent aliens in the 1977 movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Gray alien-type beings are also depicted as musicians in Star Wars of the same year. But it was during the early 1980s popular culture linked Greys to the alleged crash landing of a flying saucer in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. A number of publications contained statements from individuals who claimed to have seen the U.S. military handling a number of unusually proportioned, bald, child-sized beings. These individuals claimed that the beings had oversized heads and slanted eyes, but scant or other facial features during and after the incident. In 1987, popular novelist Whitney Strieber published the book Communion, in which he describes a number of close encounters he alleges to have experienced with Greys and other extraterrestrial beings. The book became a New York Times bestseller, and New Line Cinema released a film adaptation starring Christopher Walken in 1989. Greys are commonly included in alien abduction claims. Among reports of supposed alien encounters, Greys make up approximately 50% in Australia, 43% in the United States, 90% in Canada, 67% in Brazil, 20% in continental Europe, and around 12% in the United Kingdom. These reports include two distinct groups of Greys that differ in height. Abductees say that they recognize the leader of their abductors by its demeanor. Some ufologists and abduction researchers believe that taller Greys, with their reported increased authority and apparently more complex psychology, may be the only Grey type to be biologically alive, and that the shorter form could be their artificially constructed robot or cyborg servants. Some alien abduction reports have depicted variant skin colors, such as blue-gray, green-gray, or purple-gray, and sometimes not gray at all. The skin is typically described as being extremely smooth, almost as if of an artificial material like rubber or plastic. Abduction claims are often described as extremely traumatic, similar to an abduction by humans or even a sexual assault in the level of trauma and distress. Research has shown that emotional impact of perceived abduction can be as great as or even greater than that of combat, sexual abuse, and other traumatic events. The eyes are often a focus of abduction claims. They are said to not move or focus on any observable way to the naked eye. Claims often describe a Grey staring into the eyes of an abductee when conducting mental procedures. This staring is claimed to induce hallucinogenic states or directly provoke different emotions. Although abduction claimants often say that the Grey was only inches from their face during the staring mind scan procedure, they often subsequently claim to not feeling breath or seeing the Grey's chest move from breathing. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Greys represent part of a government-led disinformation or plausible deniability campaign, or that they are a product of government mind control experiments. Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of the Disclosure Project and head of CSETI, claims to have over 400 government, military, and intelligence community witnesses that have offered testimony to the existence of aliens and UFOs, or efforts to cover up their existence, and who have stated that they would be willing to defend their claims under oath. No matter what the Greys are or where they come from, a growing number of people insist they do exist and that they have had personal encounters with them. Many of these encounters are said to be very unpleasant. However, a few abductees describe the encounters as very pleasant, or at least not scary. The alien abduction phenomenon continues to this day, with new reports received yearly, mostly by sane individuals that have no desire to have their experience made public, nor are they seeking any kind of fame from it. Most are simply seeking answers to perplexing incidents in their lives where they believe they have been taken by aliens. Not all aliens look alien. The Nordics are said to be very human-looking. In fact, you may have encountered one and didn't even know it. In ufology, Nordic aliens are humanoid extraterrestrials purported to come from the Pleiades, who resemble Nordic Scandinavians. Professed contactees describe them as typically male, 6 to 7 feet tall, with long blonde hair, blue eyes, and skin tones ranging from fair to tanned. Ufologist George Adamski is credited with being among the first to claim contact with Nordic aliens in the mid-1950s, and scholars note that the mythology of extraterrestrial visitation from beings with features described as Aryan often include claims of telepathy, benevolence, and physical beauty. In contactee and ufology literature, Nordic aliens are often described as benevolent or even magical beings that want to observe and communicate with humans and are concerned about the Earth's environment or prospects for world peace. Believers also ascribe telepathic powers to Nordic aliens and describe them as paternal, watching, smiling, affectionate, and youthful. Kelly Romano observes that white extraterrestrials are those that are most revered among claimants compared to other beings like the Greys, and argues that claimants may use their stories about extraterrestrials as a means of articulating racially based fears. During the 1950s, many contactees, especially those in Europe, claimed encounters with beings fitting this description. Such claims became relatively less common in subsequent decades as the gray aliens supplemented the Nordic in most alleged accounts of extraterrestrial encounters. In 1975, Travis Walton was abducted in Snowflake, Arizona, and described both gray aliens and Nordics on board the ship. When the Nordic came to his assistance, he thought he was being rescued because the Nordic looked so human. So he went with them, only to be sedated by them later because he was so agitated. Billy Meyer is a Swiss citizen who is the source of many photographs of alleged unidentified flying objects, which he presents in support of his claim that he is in contact with extraterrestrial beings. Meyer has claimed contact with many Nordic females since 1942 and has started a religion based on their teachings. Along with the Nordics, there are star people, also known as star seeds, and sometimes indigo children, in a New Age belief and fringe theory. Introduced by Brad Steiger in his 1976 book, Gods of Aquarius, it argues that certain people originated as extraterrestrials and arrived on Earth through birth or as a walk-in in an existing human body. It is a variant in the belief in alien-human hybrids. There are many different beliefs as to the origins of star people or star seeds, although the term star people was taken from an existing Native American spiritual concept. Steiger described star people in his 1976 book on contactees as humans who come from a special gene pool linked to visits by extraterrestrials. They claim to come into human life forms and suffer helplessness and total amnesia concerning their identity, origins, and life purpose. The awakening process claimed to be experienced is described as either a gradual series of realizations over time or an abrupt and dramatic awakening of consciousness. Through the awakening process, they regain memories about their past, origins, and missions. An increase in intuition, psychic ability, and the sense of a more universal self that transcends mortal identity are also commonly reported. Some claim communication via telepathy with unearthly beings, either physical or non-physical. Some believe that life exists on other planets. Most believe they have lived on other planets. And many recount experiences they claim are memories of life on other worlds. The concepts of spaceships, intergalactic travel, psychic phenomenon, and sentient life forms in other galaxies are common. Washington Post journalist Joel Achenbach interviewed people who said they were starseeds from the Pleiades for his book, Captured by Aliens, The Search for Life and Truth in a Very Large Universe. He noted the contrast with ufologists. The starseeds are precisely the kind of New Age figures the traditional ufologists can't stand. Ufologists look outward towards the universe for answers to the alien enigma. New Agers look inward. To this day, many people believe they are starseeds planted here on Earth, but are actually extraterrestrials. These people live normal lives, and it's very possible that you have met at least one in your lifetime. One of the most terrifying alien species said to exist is more reptile than man. Reptilians, also called reptoids, lizard people, reptilians, saurians, and draconians, are purported reptilian humanoids that play a prominent role in ufology and conspiracy theories. The idea of reptilians was popularized by David Icke, a conspiracy theorist who claims shape-shifting reptilian aliens control Earth by taking on human form and gaining political power to manipulate human societies. Icke has claimed on multiple occasions that many of the world leaders are, or are possessed by, so-called reptilians. Alien abduction narratives sometimes allege contact with reptilian creatures. One of the earliest reports was that of Ashland, Nebraska police officer Herbert Schreimer, who claims to have been taken aboard a UFO in 1967 by humanoid beings with a slightly reptilian appearance, who wore a winged serpent emblem on their left side of their chests. On March the 4th of 2013, a video depicting a security agent with unusual features guarding a speech by U.S. President Barack Obama was spotlighted in a Wired report about shape-shifting reptilian humanoids, leading to a tongue-in-cheek response from Chief National Security Councilwoman Kathleen Hayden that any alleged program to guard the president with aliens or robots would likely have to be scaled back or eliminated in the sequester. In 1982, Dale A. Russell, then curator of vertebrate fossils at the National Museum of Canada in Ottawa, conjectured a possible evolutionary path for Styracosaurus. If it had not perished in the Cretaceous extinction event 65 million years ago, suggesting that it could have evolved into intelligent beings similar in body plans to humans. Russell suggested that if the trend in Styracosaurus evolution had continued to the present, its brain case would by now be measured to that comparable to a human. Troodontids had semi-manipulative fingers, able to grasp and hold objects to a certain degree, and binocular vision. Russell proposed that his dinosaurid, like members of the Troodonid family, would have had large eyes and 3 fingers on each hand, one of which would have been partially opposed. Russell also speculated that the dinosaurid would have had a toothless beak. As with most modern reptiles and birds, he conceived of its genitalia as internal. Russell speculated that it would have required a navel, as a placenta aids the development of a large brain case. However, it would not have possessed mammary glands and would have fed its young as some birds do on regurgitated food. He speculated that its language would have sounded somewhat like birdsong. In popular culture and UFO conspiracy theories, men in black are supposed men dressed in black suits who claim to be government agents who harass or threaten UFO witnesses to keep them quiet about what they have seen. It is sometimes implied that they may be aliens themselves, sometimes as having reptilian features. The term is also frequently used to describe mysterious men working for unknown organizations, as well as various branches of government allegedly designed to protect secrets or perform other strange activities. The term is generic, used for any unusual, threatening, or strangely behaved individual whose appearance on the scene may be linked in some fashion with a UFO sighting. Several alleged encounters with the Men in Black have been reported by UFO researchers and enthusiasts. Some believe they may be reptoids in disguise. Aliens are not just a present phenomenon. Many believe that we have had visitors from space for all of our existence as mankind. In fact, some believe that the myths and legends of the past can be explained as alien visitations. The Anunaki are a group of deities that appear in the mythological traditions of the ancient Sumerians. Descriptions of how many Anunnaki there were and what role they fulfilled are inconsistent and often contradictory. In the earliest Sumerian writings about them, which come from the post-Akkadian period, the Anunnaki are the most powerful deities in the pantheon, descendants of An, the god of the heavens, and their primary function is to decree the fate of humanity. In his 1976 book, The 12th Planet, Russian-American author Zecharia Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki were actually a race of extraterrestrial beings from the undiscovered planet of Nibiru, who came to Earth about 50,000 years ago in order to mine gold. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki genetically engineered Homo erectus to create modern humans to work as their slaves. Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki were forced to leave Earth when Antarctic glaciers melted, causing the flood of Noah, which also destroyed the Anunnaki's bases on Earth. These had to be rebuilt, and the Nephilim needed more humans to help in this massive effort, taught them agriculture, according to Sitchin. The Anunnaki built the pyramids and all other monumental structures from around the world that ancient astronaut theories consider so impossible to build without highly advanced technologies. Sitchin also claimed that the Anunnaki had left behind human-alien hybrids, some of whom still are alive today, unaware of their alien ancestry. Sitchin predicted that the Anunnaki would return to Earth, corresponding to the end of the Mesoamerican long count calendar. Sitchin's writings have been universally rejected by mainstream historians, who have labeled his books as pseudo-history, pointing out that Sitchin seemingly deliberately misrepresents Sumerian texts by quoting them out of context, truncating quotes, and mistranslating Sumerian words to give them radically different meanings from their accepted definitions. Nonetheless, because Sitchin worked in the shadow of Erich von Daniken's more widely publicized Chariots of the Gods, he managed to escape the notice of debunkers, allowing his theories to become more influential. Although Sitchin himself described the Anunnaki as humanoids, in a book published in 1994, the conspiracy theorist Arthur Horn proposed that they were actually reptilians. British conspiracy theorist David Icke further expanded on this thesis by claiming that the surviving alien bloodlines mentioned by Sitchin were the Brotherhood of Babylon, a race of shape-shifting reptilian aliens who secretly control all the governments of the world and keep humans enslaved, using the Illuminati as one of their chess pieces. To this day, many are awaiting the return of Nibiru and the gods of the past, where they will re-establish themselves on Earth. Various predictions of the time they will return have all ended up false, but true believers continue to look to the skies for the return of aliens from our history. Not all aliens are gods or evil. Many want to help the people of Earth. The Andromedans are benevolent and friendly aliens from the Andromeda Galaxy. They are a telepathic race, lovers and keepers of peace and love, wanting to watch or help save the races enslaved by evil reptilians. Andromedans are noted in the Galactic Federation for their mastery of all forms of scientific endeavor. They are said to be energy beings and may or may not take on physical form. When they do become physical, the eyes of all Andromedans are slightly larger than those of Earth humans. The lips are thin and colored almost a light pink, while the ears are fitted slightly lower on the side of the head and are slightly smaller in size. The hands and the feet are delicate in appearance, with long fingers and toes. These are a non-physical race of purely awesome, ancient, angelic beings from the Andromeda Galaxy. They ultimately are the spiritual force behind the Ashtar Command, and are the leaders behind the Pleiadians and our whole human branch of evolution. They are the oldest race in the galaxy, and are said to be concerned about the future of the human race. Andromedans are noted in the Galactic Federation for their mastery of all forms of scientific endeavor. Many believe that the Andromedans are watching over the Earth even now and directing history towards a better future for mankind. There is also a group of aliens that appear to be on a mission for the betterment of mankind. Space Brothers are usually distinguished from other commonly referenced extraterrestrials, such as the Greys and Reptilians, by being human in appearance, by their wisdom, and by their apparently benevolent purpose. They are usually depicted as Pleiadian aliens, the third major type of aliens reported by contactees, besides Greys or reptiles. They usually claim to be contacting humans to convey a message of peace, environmental responsibility, or to tout an alternate, often anti-materialistic philosophy. As generally described, the Space Brothers look completely human. They are reported to be various heights. They generally have light shades of hair and light-colored eyes, and act as if in the peak of health. They are able to speak all Earth languages or communicate only via telepathy and don't use spoken language of any kind. They are from utopian societies where there is no war, crime, violence of any kind, disease, poverty, or hunger. They generally claim to be extremely and conventionally religious in outlook, and to guide their lives successfully by simplistic spiritual rules. They also say that in their culture there is no distinction between science and religion. They have lifespans of roughly 1,000 years and remain at vigorous middle age for almost their entire lifespan. They are described as eating only fruits and vegetables and drinking only fruit juice or nectar. They wear one-piece garments like jumpsuits when physical, with no visible equipment or insignia. Female Space Brothers are described as incredibly beautiful and voluptuous, but males are also described as facially representing very beautiful terrestrial women. Those who have claimed to have had face-to-face encounters with flying saucer crew members, and usually rides in their saucers, beginning in 1952, started with George Adamski, the Ashtar Galactic Command, a modern UFO religion. Ruth Norman, Billy Meyer, and Rael expose similar claims to this day. There is yet another race of aliens visiting Earth, and their appearance is often disturbing. Mantis, or insectoid-appearing beings, have led the abductee experiencer phenomenon from the beginning of our modern-day awareness of it. They appear to be at the higher, if not the highest end of the extraterrestrial hierarchy, since they are most always described as overseeing or have a supervisory role in the abduction procedure process. This is the case whether it is a medical procedure or human-ET hybrid interaction. This takes place during situations involving baby or child presentations, all the way to sexual instruction, interaction, and possible telepathic absorption of emotions and sensations. In many such encounters, there is normally a mantis or insectoid being directing and observing the greys, other beings, and people involved. These beings have long, narrow faces with long, narrow, large eyes, sharply slanted upward and outward in an almost narrow V position, giving an insect-like appearance. This comparison is heightened by the praying mantis types, extremely thin, long torsos, long, extremely thin arms, which are usually crooked into a sharp bent at the mid-joint, and the hand and fingers sloping almost vertically downward from the wrist, and legs also bent at an almost right angle at the mid-joint, creating a crouched pose. The overall effect is the characteristic praying mantis look. It should be noted that experiencers feel that this type is no insect, but rather an intelligent, gentle-spirited, and jerky-moving, human-like life form. There are both males and females. Both have black, brown, and even green skin, and are often seen wearing a cloak-type clothing. Buzzing and clicking sounds are associated with these beings, as well as telepathic interrogation-like tactics during visits. The telepathic interrogation can be just as intense as seeing a hologram of Earth and watching our planet be destroyed. This is an interrogative type of interaction that is not uncommon for abductee experiencers to have to endure, and it is normally carried out by mantis insectoid type beings. Their demeanor, however, ranges from loving and gentle to very aggressive. These variations are thought to be due to the amount of information an abductee experiencer remembers and how much of that knowledge they share with others, especially those going public with their experiences. It is believed that the mantis beings are conducting some kind of hybrid program on humans, combining their DNA with ours and producing alien hybrids. No one knows the reason for this. It is assumed the aliens need our DNA to help their own race, or the aliens are making hybrid babies so they can survive on other planets with different atmospheres. The mantis beings also are thought to be creating the greys, and the greys are a kind of biological robot made to do the bidding of the mantis beings. As we make robots out of materials and metals, the mantis do the same, but with genetics. Greys are created for specific tasks, programmed to understand how to carry out those tasks, then sent to work where they're needed. After the Grey has fulfilled their duty to the tasks at hand, they are terminated. Greys appear to have no reproductive organs and no anus. They live only long enough to perform the jobs they are created for, then either expire or are euthanized. As a moral issue, we may find this repugnant, but consider that the mantis have evolved on another world and would not have our values and morals. For them, this may be a common practice, and they have no ethical issues with it, as we have no ethical issues with making robots to perform tasks too difficult or dangerous for humans. It's also possible that the Greys have a built-in lifespan and perhaps only live a few days or weeks, long enough to do the job they are tasked with. Then they simply die or self-terminate on their own. There are various types of mantis beings ranging in color. Some are referred to as tall blacks, which are thought to be hybrids of humans and mantis. The tall blacks have dark black skin and are human-like in appearance, but also insectoid. The tall blacks could be yet another species of insectoid, but they appear to be equal to the mantis beings or their helpers. Mantis beings appear in much of the abduction cases, as do the Greys, but appear to be in charge when seen. The lesson these beings are apparently trying to communicate is that humans are causing much more pain and destruction than they know, and humans kill what they do not understand, and often kill what they simply fear. If aliens do come to Earth, it would be as researchers, biologists, anthropologists, linguists, keen to understand the particular workings of life on Earth, to meet humanity and learn of our art, music, culture, languages, philosophies, and religions. For many of us, the thought of alien visitations began with movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind that had us scanning the night skies with a hopeful sense of expectation. Lately, however, some have been shifting their gazes downward with a fearful sort of, nope, nothing here to look at, keep flying by attitude. However, we should not be afraid to look skyward in anticipation that we may be visited. No matter what they look like or their intentions, it is still a huge discovery to know that we are not alone, and someone out there finds us interesting enough to want to drop by. Perhaps when aliens are fully known and we have accepted their existence, our own culture will become one of many whom other races will wonder if we are visiting them.